I'm going to read straight out the bio. It's pretty impressive. She's the manager of the University of Tulsa Nano Characterization Lab and the holder of 3 patents. She frequently lectures in the UK on historic landscapes and recently was a consultant on the Art Deco gardens employed in Baz Luhrmann's Great Gatsby. 4 years ago, she serendipitously created a blog about children's playscapes that now receives 80,000 page views per month and will be featured this month at the Museum of Modern Art Playground Symposium. She's where left brain and right brain meet. Paige Dunn.
When I got the invitation to come tonight, I had to say, are they expecting to hear about science or garden history or playgrounds or the church I'm building? I didn't know. They said playgrounds, so I'm going to talk to you about not so myself so much about playgrounds. This is a traditional equipment-based playground, and if this is what you think of or picture when you hear the word playground, you might also picture a VHS tape when you hear the word movie. Okay? So while you weren't looking, playgrounds have changed, and they've changed a lot. And so what I want to leave you with tonight, I'm not going to talk necessarily explicitly about every playground that flashes behind the screen, but I want them to kind of be a visual context for what I'm going to talk about. And I want to give you 4 takeaways of what playgrounds are now, because that's very different from what playgrounds have been in the past, what playgrounds are asked to do and be. And the first thing that they're asked to do and be is beautiful. And this should be really good news to all you artists in the room. That communities are beginning to demand a visual appeal and a high design quality for these spaces that they're literally spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on. Whether it's something that's hand crocheted or hand carved, we are expecting playgrounds to become a place of beauty and appeal. And what we're seeing here is really the blurring of lines between maybe a traditional playground and a gallery. And more ambitious communities are really pushing these boundaries in 2 ways. They're either requiring that many commissions of public art actually be playable. The best example of this, for those of you that are familiar with, is the big Picasso sculpture in the main square in Chicago. Or actually not specifying traditional playgrounds in areas, they're actually asking that things be built that they call playable art parks, okay? So rather than commissioning a traditional landscape plan, they're requiring that these things be both sculptural and playable. And that leads me neatly into kind of the next thing that playgrounds are on, that's local. It's actually really surprising that for a long time we have playgrounds to the same standards of other public spaces. That we allowed them to be generic, that we've accepted that you can install the same thing in Tulsa as you could in Timbuktu, and we've just accepted that. But increasingly now, playgrounds are beginning to be judged by the same standards by which we judge other community spaces, and in that is the expectation that it be locally contextualized. Not just that you use local artists and architects, but they speak to the local community, that it reflect the culture, that it be in conversation with the city, that it take into itself the language of place that exists and speak back that language. And that's all really good news. What it says is that we're really asking a lot more of playgrounds than we used to, and that's all to the good. And what's happening really, as I mentioned before, we're kind of blurring the boundaries between the playground space and public art space. The other thing that we're doing is really blurring the boundaries between the playground as a physical space within the city, within the urban fabric, and other parts of the city. And that's really all to the good. There are theorists for many years that have said, well, really playgrounds are kind of a joke, actually. We fence them in, we say they're only for children, it's really a ghettoization of play. And it's far better that this play reach out into the city, and that's becoming the norm. And with that, there's the expectation that playgrounds actually be used to address social ills, that they use to provide both a playscape and a gathering space for the community, as this little playground sliver in Thailand does. That they actually be used, say, address the problem of a vandalism and graffiti-ridden building, which I think you'll see on the next slide, by covering it with neoprene skin that allows climbability. There we go. I can't believe I'm actually getting ahead of myself. I'm talking fast. But as we expect more of playgrounds, we're actually more out of playgrounds. And what we're seeing then, because we're expecting playgrounds to do more, is the creation of new forms. Not by traditional playground providers, not by traditional playground manufacturers, but by artists and architects that are involving themselves in play. And this is the morphology. This is the morphology of a roofscape that was combining a need for a bubble shelter with a need for a teen space. And by morphing this, by creating totally new topographies, we're able to create these remarkable new spaces in the city for play. So that's the third thing that playgrounds are required to be now. They're required to be beautiful, they're required to be local, and they're required to be topographical. It's actually, again, very strange that it's taken so long to challenge the notion that play takes place on a flat space. And that notion is really really passe now. There is the creation of topography. There's these artificial forms like roofscape, like that morphed basketball court that was created for a team place in Germany. But then there's also the natural element of that, the creation of new landforms. And the natural playscape movement, which has been going on really for some time, has just really ballooned here in the States and has really taken root. And this comes from the desire to create new topographies and forms, but also just from the realization that actually children, and particularly early childhood, would really just rather drag a stick through the dirt. And they tend to ignore these playgrounds that we have created for them at great cost, and to the urban landscape as well. And so we're adding things like grasses, dry stream beds, again, hills with new things, as I said, in playground design, to really address these that we've noticed that actually children really prefer to play this way. But the greatest thing about the natural playscape movement is that finally it really does wrest the creation of a playground away from the manufacturers and give it back to the communities themselves. And so a community can create a playground like this for $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000, not $500 or $600 or $700,000. This is also the way to improve any playscape anywhere, no matter how bad it is, by adding some stumps, adding some rocks, adding some other things I can't call to mind right now, but adding a hill. That's the thing you can possibly do on a playground is add a hill. And so once again, we're seeing the blurring of boundaries. As we've blurred the boundary between the gallery playground, we've blurred the boundary between the utilization of playground and other city spaces, and now we're really overlapping the playground and the garden, bringing into the playground elements that we've traditionally tended to see in landscapes, and adding into landscapes the traditional capacities like parks and botanic gardens, a strong element of play. So I hope some of the things that you've seen this evening have expanded your idea of what a playground is and what a playground can be. You can, if you Google Playscapes blog, I'll come right up, and you can see more of that there. And I hope if you're given the opportunity within your own community to be an advocate for a children's place, you will demand that it be beautiful, that it be local, that it be graphic, that it be natural. Thank you.